Rabbi,
Hello.
good evening. How are you?
All right, you're looking very relaxed today. How are you?
Yeah, sorry I didn't dress up tonight. I thought
That's
Purim
okay.
I could actually relax a little bit, wear something different for once. I was going to do a fun.
Feeling Purim a bit.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sunday Night Live. And this week is our Purim special. We're here to talk all about Purim. It's um, a very different type of Purim that we're expecting this year. Um, Rabbi, where should we start? Can I kick off by reading the Jewish Telegraph to you?
Go on. How
Okay,
long does that take?
it's going to take very quick, very quick. So, on the back of this week's Jewish Telegraph, there is an advert here from the Manchester Based-In, and it goes through what they're advising regarding the halachas of Purim this year and how people should observe it and their advice. And I'm just going to go through some of them if you don't mind. So reading the Megillah, optimally, all men and women should listen to the Megillah in a shul. One may read the Megillah at home from a kosher scroll. Every venue must adhere to all social distancing regulations. If, owing to clinical vulnerability, one cannot hear the Megillah, one should ask a rabbi for guidance. Now, that is the main bit of I suppose, is what most people have been focusing on until now. But obviously, it's a very small part of Purim altogether. And perhaps we're guilty sometimes of focusing on it too much. But in terms of um, not the controversy of the wording of this advice, but in general, one of the questions that I've been asked a lot, if we're going to be discussing it tonight, is the issue of Zoom readings for the Megillah. Is that seen as being will Rabbonim go so far as to say that they're going to the people listening on Zoom are actually fulfilling their their requirements as far as the letter of the law is concerned. And I've had one person even suggest to me that Rabbonim should be issuing that sort of edict because they want to make sure that as many people as possible stay at home. But that's not quite the way that everybody sees it, is it?
Okay, so I think we'll start with that one because it's a really great question. I think the first thing that I would say is, and it's really important to take this into consideration, is that whether Rabbanim want people to stay at home or whether the Rabbanim want people to come to shul has no bearing in halacha as to whether or not you can or cannot fulfill your obligation on Zoom. I think that's a very important point to make. I think that the two should be seen as two separate things. Sometimes they're not, and I think there's often this, I guess, I don't know, this myth where there's a rabbinic will, there's a rabbinic way. Have you heard that one before?
I've heard of that before, yeah.
Yeah, and people will say, if the Rabbonim only wanted, they would take care of the Agunas, and the Rabbonim only wanted, they would make sure that everybody would be able to do everything on Zoom. And if the Rabbonim only wanted, they would all agree on an Eruv, and the Rabbonim, you get, and it's really, people like to say it all has to do with the Rabbonim not really wanting to, they're sitting on their pedestal, they don't really want to give up their throne, and therefore what they're doing is, they're throwing the toys out of the pram and going, no, you have to come to shul. You can't hear it on Zoom. Well, we're all going to hear it on Zoom anyway. All right, fine. If you're all going to hear it on Zoom, then it's still okay, right? So I think I'd like to sort of put that out there, that the answer to that question is not based upon whether or not I want someone to come to shul or not. Actually, I think we spoke about this before, in that there were people, we had a discussion today on one of the WhatsApp groups about whether or not people should or shouldn't be coming to shul, and that, should the Rabbonim actually be pushing people to come to shul, or should the Rabbonim actually be pushing people not to come to shul? I think there are people that are saying that that people should be pushing not to come to shul. There are people that have come forward and said that. So it makes for that, that's part of the discussion. But I think when we get to the discussion about the Zoom Megillah reading, let's just take a step back. I think I'm going to read out the best guidance I've seen about this is actually given by the Orthodox Union, and I'm going to read it out. The Chief Rabbi's office is actually, as I see over here, Debbie Lazarus has commented, it has been accepted by the Chief Rabbi. Again, if you read the language written by Dayan Geli in that letter, it's very much a language of, when push comes to shove, which is also what I'm going to read. I think it's better. It was written better in the Orthodox Union's guidance than it's written actually in the guidance that the Chief Rabbi's office put out or the London Bezdin put out. But the basic idea is Megillah, the mitzvah of Megillah is to hear the Megillah from an individual who is laning the Megillah from a kosher scroll, and to hear the person actually who is laning it, to hear him live. There never was such a thing of not being able to hear the person live. There was always only hearing the person live. I think if some of you I think we spoke about this. We didn't speak about this, but I did speak about this in Halacha come at Rosh Hashanah time about echoes. Sometimes you're in a shul, and if you're standing outside the shul, you might not be hearing the shofar. You're only hearing the echo of the shofar. So you've not heard the shofar blast. You've heard something else, which is the reverberation of the sound within inside the shul making its way outside. I remember I was standing outside my friend's house. I was invited in 1994. This goes back a long time. To a friend of mine's house for Rosh Hashanah, and he had forgotten to take a key. So we're just standing outside his house waiting for his parents to show up, and we heard shofar coming from this side. And my friend told me, he says, there's no shul down there. There's actually a shul over here, but somehow the way the shofar was sort of reverberating, you were hearing it from the other side. And so the halacha says you have to hear Megillah from somebody reading the Megillah from a kosher scroll. The question then became hearing it over the phone. That's really the first question that came up before we even came to Zoom. Rav Moshe Feinstein discusses the question about whether you are or you're not allowed to hear the Megillah over the phone. And he says maybe, if push comes to shove, you might be able to hear it over the phone. Most authorities don't seem to agree with Rav Moshe Feinstein on that one, but you have Rav Moshe Feinstein still. Rav Moshe Feinstein was the Gadol Hador. He was the greatest halachic authority in his generation, who just passed away a bit over 30 years ago. And he said, yes, you could. And that was the phone. And I think, from the phone to Zoom or to hearing it via any other media is not that much of a stretch.
No.
And so therefore, I think if I were to read out the Orthodox Union guidance, they say over here, this is the way they phrase it. And I think this is probably the best way to say it. The clear majority of halachic authorities do not consider halachically adequate a Megillah reading heard over the phone or online. There is, however, a minority opinion that does allow for this, provided that the reading is live and not pre-recorded. Following the halachic principle that we may rely upon minority opinions under extenuating circumstances, when no better option exists, this minority opinion can be relied upon. Okay, so I think that's a lot.
So that's the Orthodox Union. Now,
yeah, I think that the Chief Rabbi's office actually said exactly the same thing. I think it was a little bit more convoluted when you read the letter.
The United Synagogue, it's interesting. Their wording of a similar statement is a little bit more woolly, and it's really very much open to interpretation. And I'll read it out. It says, ordinarily, adults have an obligation to hear the Megillah in person, both in the evening and the day of Purim. If you can hear a reading in shul or from somebody else whilst compliant with government and US COVID regulations, or if you can read it yourself from a kosher scroll, then you should do. If, owing to COVID restrictions, it is not possible, then you should listen to one of the live recitals we are broadcasting rather than a recording. So it's saying the same thing, just in a much more
I think it was the next sentence that was the more woolly bit. You have the next sentence there as well.
I don't know. That is no. The only bit that I've got is that. But
hold on 1 second. I'll pull it up on my computer because Sharon would actually send it to me. So I will pull that up and have a look if I can find it. Here it is. And then it writes. So you start there. If owing to COVID restrictions, it is not possible to attend synagogue, and there's also not possible to read or hear the Megillah at home, then one should listen over Zoom or similar medium to the Megillah being recorded live, as opposed to recording. And then it goes, even though according to conventional halacha, there's a serious question whether one has performed a bona fide mitzvah with such hearing. In a situation where no other option is available, one should at least participate in such a manner. And then he goes on to this ruling not being confused with other things.
Okay, but everything basically stops short of saying, by doing this, you're definitely 100% fulfilling your mitzvah in this way.
So again, the way I phrase it in my email, I think I've taken a bit of a stronger stance. But I think the chief rabbi, when I spoke to him also, I think he said, somebody who has, for medical reasons, is not going to be able to hear the Megillah, is not obligated to hear the Megillah, right? So therefore, the Zoom readings is, most of the people, I would hope, that are not coming to shul on Purim night are going to be people that are not coming because of medical reasons, not because they just can't be bothered. So those people that cannot come for medical reasons have an exemption as far as the halacha is concerned of hearing the Megillah entirely. If they still want to hear the Megillah via Zoom, then again, you have the Chief Rabbi's office and the Orthodox Union that says, well, look, it's better than nothing, and in extenuating circumstances, go with that minority opinion. Or some would say, well, you don't really need to read the Megillah at all, and if you want to hear it, it's just there to give you a bit of So the question: don't we all have medical reasons? That's a very good question, Sandy, and I think the answer to that is the following: if you feel confident enough to go to Halpern's, Haber's, Tesco, anywhere else, and feel that those places have, done what they need to do as far as COVID restrictions are concerned, you can come to our shul and see that the restrictions here are being kept much better and much more stringently than they are in any shop that I've been to. And if it's okay medically to go to any other shop that's out there, it is okay medically to come to shul as well. If you are actually, like many people in our shul, isolating and not going out for anything, well, then you don't need to go out for shul either. But to say that going to shops is okay, to say that going to work is okay, and that shul is suddenly dangerous is that's a fallacy, and that doesn't mean that we all have medical reasons.
Okay, so we're getting a few comments there off the back of that. As you know, it's a very emotive issue, this one. Chava states, I don't think that people can't be bothered. I think Chava takes exception that there is a general view that those people that want to come to shul will come to shul. That's not what we're saying, though, is it, Rabbi?
Well, no. I think I think we need to sort of split it up into categories. There are people that either within their family or themselves have serious issues with coming to shul and need to make sure that they and their family members stay healthy. And that needs to be their top priority. These people should not be coming to shul. And I will say it unequivocally. People who have a reason for medical purposes not to come to shul should not be coming to shul. However, there are people that will say to me, Rabbi, coming to shul, I'm just not ready for that yet. It's really very dangerous. It's just not right at the moment. And then you see they're all over the place except for shul, and then at that point you get the feeling that they're using COVID as an excuse for not coming to shul rather than COVID really being taken seriously. Because if you really want to take COVID seriously, then stay home and go nowhere.
Okay, we have Clive Moss Barkley. I just want to answer his point. He's asking, what about age as a reason not to go to shul as recommended by the chief rabbi for over 70? So, well, my answer to that, Clive, is that we as an executive had a discussion about that. We knew that the United Synagogue were making recommendations as to forcibly stop over 70s from attending. And we have issues with that. We think that it is not right of us to dictate to any age category, but particularly people who have reached that ripe and mature age, often much wiser than us, but they know whether or not they should be taking the correct medical advice and coming to shul, whether it's advisable to them. The rabbi has stated more than once today that he's a rabbi and not a doctor, and therefore not able to rule one thing permissible from a medical perspective. So we took the choice to let as many shuls actually in Manchester taking the choice to let over 70s decide for themselves. They're already in enough of a confined environment. If they now feel a little bit more confident now that there's some vaccines floating about and people are starting to become emboldened by that, then it's up to them to take that decision. That's very much the point of view that we took. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Rabbi.
No, I think that's exactly right. First of all, the first thing I would say is I fully endorse what you've said. Is I'm not a doctor. That's the first thing I can fully endorse.
I can vouch for that.
Pardon?
I can vouch.
I'm glad we agree on that one. We've agreed on that one. My mother's never forgiven me, but what should I tell you?
You came a close second. A rabbi.
Came a close second. A rabbi. Not even. Never. Right. But as far as the over 70s. So again, as you said, there are some people that are over 70 that have said, I'm over 70 and I'm not going out. And we have sent out the fact that the chief rabbi has recommended for over 70s not to go out. And so we have said that. And we've said that very clearly. But we've also said that people should make their own decisions because, if I look around in shul and I see over 70s, there are probably on a regular Shabbos, maybe 5 people that are over 70. That's it, at most. We don't have a lot of people that are over 70. Most over 70s are not coming. And those over 70s who are coming, for example, Sheila Morris said last week, she says she feels very, very safe in shul. She feels the shul's done an excellent job. And Ian, together with Paul and Debbie Verber, really went out of the way,
outstanding job,
dotting every I and crossing every T possible. And as I said, I feel that our shul is, for me, the safest building that I've been to in Bury. There's nowhere else in Bury that I've been. Maybe Salford has other shuls that are like it, but there's nowhere else in Bury that I have been that comes anywhere near to the rules and the stringency and the regulations that our shul has in place.
Just peering behind the scenes and knowing what goes into planning services at our shul, and in terms of the booking system, which we've used from pretty much day one that we were allowed to come back, it's working. We have an effective track and trace system, a far more effective track and trace system than the government's, as it turns out. But we literally have managed to keep it so that Baruch Hashem, we've not had an incident where we needed to worry about it. And since coming out of perhaps that first lockdown, people have had bar mitzvahs in the shul. There have been several services going on, and we've managed to get through, obviously, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, everything else that we needed to do without. It has been different. It has been very different, and it will not be the same. And there's an argument in some respects the atmosphere was lacking from certain parts of our calendar, but we've talked about that, right?
But
we're going to talk about how that
we could.
We're going to talk about how that impacts
at the time. And but what I would say is also to add to that, I think in all the shuls around the country that have been keeping social distancing properly, obviously there are shuls that are not keeping social distancing properly, and I'm not talking about that, and we're not sort of okaying that or condoning that. But in all the shuls that have been keeping social distancing properly, there's not been one case, not one, of people having to isolate because of somebody else getting COVID. So somebody has had COVID. They said yes. Gotten in touch with the NHS track and trace. They said, have you been to synagogue? Yes. Has anybody been within your vicinity for over 15 minutes in close proximity? The answer was no, and therefore they said, okay, well, nobody then has to isolate. So there hasn't been any issues whatsoever as far as that is concerned, and so that's what I would say.
So you've got here a bit of an endorsement of what we've been speaking about from Brian Cohen. The safety in shul is second to none, and I am well over 70, Brian Cohen.
He's also over 80 by now.
Well over 70. But this is about people having the ability to make their own mind up. We as a shul are not here to dictate to them what they should and shouldn't do. You as a rabbi are not here to dictate to them what is medically advisable for them. A doctor needs to do that. David Cohen is clearly a plain-spoken gentleman. So he's put the conundrum in this way. This is like being a little bit pregnant. Either it's a mitzvah or not. I think what David's asking is, can we, for the record, state people, and this is
Going back
what
to
is,
Zoom.
well,
He's
this
gone
is
back to
it.
Zoom.
Yeah, he's gone back to Zoom, but this is what's uncomfortable, is when somebody looks at a rabbi straight in the eye and says, please, Rabbi, tell me, have I done my mitzvah if I've listened to it on Zoom or not? And that's, the US haven't said it. Chief Rabbi's not said it. Nobody has gone as far as saying you have fulfilled your obligation.
I think what the Orthodox Union and what the Chief Rabbi has said is as follows. In circumstances where you are stuck at home and you cannot go out of your way, there's a minority opinion that will allow you to listen to it that way. And in those circumstances, under those circumstances, you need to rely on that minority opinion. Look, what I would say to David is, my guess is, again, I'm not a dentist and I'm definitely not an endodontist, so I can't really make comments on that. But my guess is that when you see something, not always are you clear about the course of action to go with. So I know I've taken my children to the dentist, where one dentist has said, oh, we need to pull that out. And the other dentist has said, well, no, maybe we could work with that. And so different dentists will take a different opinion on something. Some things are open and shut. You look at it, is there a cavity there or not? Yes, there is a cavity there. Okay, you'll need to drill, you need to fix it. There's no way around it. It's like the little bit pregnant. I think if you've anybody who's ever spent any time learning halacha in any depth will know that, halacha is not a cut and dried science. So that's either yes or no. It is a much more complicated thing with many opinions. And therefore you say there's the majority opinion, which is what we follow under normal circumstances. And there's a minority opinion that you can rely upon if need be. And so therefore the answer is, if need be, can you rely upon the opinion that with Zoom you can hear the Megillah? There seems to be enough people out there saying yes. But if need not be, you should not rely on that opinion, because it's not really the opinion of the majority of people that say that that speak about it.
Would you say that the halacha is perhaps not necessarily Jewish law is not agile when it comes to being able to adapt very quickly to new space? Rabbonim are giving guidance, but it's guidance. It's not new halachas that are being produced. We don't have the ability to rewrite what has been written before.
Correct. But what I would still say is that the halacha is very agile in the fact that you can always go back and get an understanding from what has been said previously to give you an understanding how to go forward with it. So we've never had an instance where we've had a question and you've come to a rabbi in halacha and he says, you know what? There's no precedent for this in halacha whatsoever. I have no idea. And nowhere in halacha can I find anything that says anything about it. You look through this response over the last few centuries, you'll find any new innovation that has come out has spawned a tremendous amount of halacha. I received an email from someone with a link to a sefer. It's a book that's on Corona, halachic book on Corona, 650 pages, halachic book on Corona. So to say that halacha is not agile, I think would be incorrect. What I would say to that is, halacha is not necessarily flexible. That means, again, as I said before, just a rabbinic, a will doesn't mean a way. You can't just make whatever you want to out of it. So there is enough precedent in the halacha to discuss almost any specific situation. However, can you change things around and say, well, it's necessary this year for everyone to hear it over Zoom, and therefore it is halachically permissible to hear it over Zoom? That's breaking it already. You can't take an old process and break it and say, well, suddenly we're doing something new. You can look at the halacha and say, what would the halacha say in this instance, and use it to extrapolate how to go forward with it.
It's interesting because I think it's because the peculiarity with Purim in particular is that obviously you can lay in the Megillah and you'll be able to Zoom that because it's on a weekday as such. You won't be doing that. You won't be able to do that on if it wasn't. And I think with other Yom Tovim that we have, so Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, nobody's going to say, well, can you Zoom Kol Nidre? Because they know that you can't actively Zoom it at the same time. So
well, yes and no, because last year for the Sidarim, there were, if you remember correctly, I think the Jewish Telegraph actually brought it as a headline of some sort that people will be Zooming their Sidarim.
Yeah.
And they will have turned on the Zoom beforehand, and they will have logged in beforehand, and so therefore they'll have Zoom with their family. And as long as it's been done beforehand, it's still okay.
Fantastic.
So people did seem to do that.
But it's harder to do with obviously you can't do that with services over Yom Tov in shul, or at least it's not something that's done in our kind of shul. I know that there are other shuls that do. Right, let's just have a look at some of these comments here, and they all come
Lots of
together.
comments. It's going
Loads of comments.
We're talking, and then there's stuff going on in the background.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get to it all. I've been sent a text. What about people who are worried about the risk? I'm going to answer that as we're going down. But anybody that is in any way worried about the risk and they don't feel capable of making a decision as to whether or not shul is correct for them, or they've made that decision and they've actually ascertained themselves that they're not willing to take the risk, they should stay at home and they should watch it on Zoom if they can.
Amen.
Thank you. Not a rabbi, but I understood what the rabbi had said. So, Deborah Fraser, if you go to a shop, it's not for a dangerous length of time. An hour is more dangerous. And again, Deborah, everybody should make their own assessment as to whether or not it is safe for them.
I would say, by the way, that I know a lot of people that go to shops, whether you go shopping for your Shabbos food, etc., etc. There are plenty of people that spend at least half an hour in a shop shopping for Shabbos. I almost never get out of there with less than half an hour. We have to buy food for 8 people and then put it all together, etc., etc. And then you have to wait in line and you have to pay. Less than half an hour, you won't manage. Chances are that if you go to a quick Megillah reading, you can get it done within half an hour. So yes, I mean, a virus load means spending more time in a closed space will increase your chances of catching the virus. That's true, but then maybe people shouldn't be going to work and sitting in the same office with people for 8 hours.
That's also true, and a very small minority of people are still doing that. Right, let's skip to Michael Lurie. For those who are concerned about being indoors for a prolonged period of time, Chabad Manchester are doing outdoor Megillah reading that can be pre-booked. That's fine. We can't specifically endorse any particular Megillah reading service. Ian, our president, he attended a meeting with Bury Council. They were very concerned about the health and safety risks. We had a plan, Rabbi. Well, you had a plan to try and arrange Megillah readings for certain blocks of flats, for instance, where we knew we had more than one member living in that block of flats, and to arrange that. And the council told us that is absolutely against the rules. So we've done the very most that we can, and you took a rather bold step today, which we'll talk about. Deborah Fraser asks, "Are you zooming it?" The answer to that
is yes, 4 times.
Okay, 4 times.
Maybe even more than that. Actually, I'll take it back. It could be more than that.
Okay.
It will be available on Zoom at 6:45 at night, and then again at 9 o'clock by Bernard Yardley. It might also be available on Zoom at 7:50 for that other reading that we're going to do with the children. So whoever wants to join us via Zoom in the evening, 6:45, 7:50, or 9 o'clock. 3 options to hear it on Zoom. In the morning, we'll have a 7:40 reading and again a 10:30 reading. What I would say to that is, I don't know if there's going to be a reading in the morning with children. We've not had it in the past, but I'm not sure why. Ask the question whether, if there's enough of a demand for children coming on Friday morning to hear the Megillah, we'll put on a Megillah reading for the children as well. But yes, so the answer is there'll be at least 5 Zoom Megillahs available, 3 at night and 2 during the day, and possibly a 6th one as well.
Awesome. Okay. Let's have a look at the next comment. Laura Greenberg has said, "It would seem quite logical that you are excused from the mitzvah if you are shielding."
And that's exactly what we said.
Okay, fantastic. And Rabbi, you were right. Brian Cohen is actually 88, bless him. Brian, you didn't look a day over 70 before you said that. Lisa Jacob.
His handshake is not a day over 70, I'll tell you that. I've not had that handshake in a whole year, but it's a heavy handshake, that one.
It's a firm one. Is it a problem hearing it live over Zoom? Isn't the mitzvah hearing the Megillah, not seeing it face to face? So this is sort of we've answered the halacha behind it, but Is this something else you want to say about this, Rabbi?
No,
Or
I'm not sure if I'm not sure I understood the question. If the question is just similar to something we've said before, I'm not sure.
I think it probably is. I think Lisa's just trying to inquire whether or not by hearing it, however you've heard it, that is the job done. Certainly, probably in the spirit of the law, but not to the letter of the law. Laura Greenberg, what is the situation for people who are being asked by the government to isolate if they test positive for COVID? The answer to
Definitely
that
stay
is
home. Do
simple.
not go out. Please do not go out. Please do not endanger anybody by going out with COVID and coming either to shul or to any other outdoor laning, whatever else it is. If the government has said you need to stay home and you need to isolate if you've tested positive for COVID, then so be it. Then you need to do that, and you are exempt from doing the mitzvah, and rather save a life by staying home than risk someone's life than going out.
Clive, under these special circumstances, is it possible for us to read the Megillah from a book instead of hearing it being read from a scroll? Is the mitzvah specific on how it's read and where it's read from?
Yeah, it is specific from how it's read and where it's read from. I've not seen. I think some people have seen some guidance about reading it out of a book, but in order you have to read it out. The truth is, you do really have to read it out of from a Megillah. You know, I've not seen anywhere. Some people discuss it, but I've not seen anywhere where they really said that you can read it out without a Megillah.
Okay. Sandy Mann states that this is very interesting. She's right, it is. Sharon Hood very briefly says the United Synagogue also zooming several live sessions, including a women's Megillah readings by women for women. And she states that she's so controversial, but I'm not sure who she's responding to. And Laura Greenberg, there was talk about putting more groups of high risk into shielding groups, so these people should maybe be more cautious. I think everybody has every reason to be cautious. These are
questions you need to ask your GP or your doctor. You know, if certain groups are being put in more high risk into shielding, again, I have nothing to comment on that. That is a medical question. Laura, you're actually a medical professional, so you might be able to answer the question better. Oh, you will. Sorry, not you might. You will be able to answer this question much better than I will. And again, if there are people that are in high risk in shielding groups, they should not be coming.
Okay. I think we've done Megillah reading aspect of Purim for this year. And it has not been boring in the slightest, and it's been very interesting. And clearly, this is something that people are very passionate about, and they care about, particularly people like Chava Erlanger, who have been shielding, and obviously will be doing so. I think the bottom line to that whole discussion is, if you've not been going out, stay in. Don't take any unnecessary risks. If you have been going out and you feel that the medical health would advise you to go, then go. So we have a number of other different chiyuvim on Purim, and one of them is money to the poor and mishloach manot. So you've got matanos levionim and you've got mishloach manot. So these are two things that sometimes get mixed up. We sometimes misappropriate which one's which, and we don't really appreciate exactly where the bigger mitzvah is or what we're meant to do. And in fact, I could argue that Mishloach Manos this year is really a possibly a risk that people shouldn't be taking. We are, after all, transferring things between people, and so therefore to run door to door like we would have done to 8 to 10 houses is irresponsible this year. And the mitzvah, anyway, in terms of how it's become more commercialized in the modern age, with people with more extravagant Mishlach Manos every year, somebody's coming up with some shtick that is bigger and better than the year before, and we're spending money on nonsense that's going to rot your teeth. A very short time frame from Pesach, so then you've got the pre-Pesach challenge of having to finish all your Purim Chometz beforehand.
It goes to gift.
Sorry, you could give
the
it.
The only people that actually gain is the shops and gift.
Yeah. So the question is, how have we come over the years to mix these things up? Have we missed out on the essential part of it?
Okay, so let's start with Mishloach Manos, because I think that's the more that's going to become the more. Here we go. Lisa's asked the question. Love to hear the thoughts about sending Mishloach Manos. So here we're going. We're going to go ahead and we're going to discuss that. So Mishloach Manos, the rule of Mishloach Manos is as follows: is Mishloach Manos ish lere'eyu. to send 2 food items from one person to another. So in order to fulfill your obligation of Mishloach Manos, you need to give 2 food items to one individual. That's the mitzvah. Again, I think maybe I'm not sure how this has become. I'm going to now surmise something, similar to Christmas presents.
Yeah.
How did it come that suddenly people give like 30 different Christmas presents? Have you ever seen that? Like, you got to give to everyone in your office, you got to give to your postman, and you have to give to this one, you have to give to that one.
Yeah.
And by the time you finish, suddenly you've spent £600 on Christmas presents. And I'm like, why did I spend so much money? And then you get back from others. It's interesting actually hearing Martin Lewis pontificate about Christmas presents, because he's always asked about it. And he always says, well, first things first, I'm Jewish, so I don't do Christmas. But, however, and then he gets into how to do it. But one of the things that he often says, I'm going to have to read through these articles.
Oh, yeah, no, don't worry about it.
I can't read the comments while I'm talking. I'm not as good as you are.
Carry on.
But one of the things, that we often say, what we used to do, I think the first few years we were here in Manchester, we used to give out a crazy amount of Mishloach Manos. And then what we've done at one point or another, that we've called up certain friends and we said, look, let's just call it a truce, right? We're not going to send to you, and we've whittled it down to basically 10 Mishloach Manos that my wife and I send out every year, forgetting about my kids, but 10 between my wife and I. And those are really, 2 of them are to family, and so it leaves 8 people. So that those are people that, the people, for example, my chavrusas, my study partners that I send to, very, very, we've really cut it down and cut it down and cut it down. But there are people that say, look, I have 6 people that work with me in my office, so everybody needs to get it. And I got 4 people that sit next to me in shul, and they need to get it. And I got a rabbi, and I got a chazan I need to give to, and maybe even the shul president, Ian Creek. We'll mention him. Ian Creek is waiting for your things. He really would like more. He's complained to me a few times already how little Shalach Manos he gets from everyone. Oh, Janine's going to love me for this one.
But Janine has said that this year she's willing to be Mavata on the whole thing because she doesn't want unnecessary contact at the house.
Okay, that's very nice of Janine, because Ian's been complaining for months already how little Shalach Manos he gets. Anyway, so now that we've had a joke on Ian's expenses, it's hard because he doesn't even get to answer. He just gets to make a comment on the side.
But do you know what you're saying is 100% true. We're joking about Ian getting more Shalach Manos, but we all know why that's a joke, because the minute you get Shalach Manos from somebody that wasn't on your list,
oh no,
go, oh no, we now need to run around and get Shalach Manos for him or for her, and so I think that tit for tat in terms of giving and taking has become something that is pretty regular. I have
my family even said, like, what are we going to do if somebody knocks on our door and offers a Shalach Manos and we have nothing to give back to them? You feel like stupid. You open up the door and somebody's standing there and you feel like stupid, and you just ask to run to the back and pull off a label.
I have to tell you something. In pre-COVID era, I'm told it's not unheard of for people to re-gift Shalach Manos that they've already received. Yeah. So I normally take off
scandalous.
I normally take off the label that says "with love from Angela and Andrew and everyone at Bratman's Bakery." I take that off, and I put my own card on it and give it out again.
And they go like, "Wow, you got a Bratman Shalach Manos. That's beautiful." The worst thing is that the people got the same one. They're like, I know this came from Angela and Andrew. It's like very embarrassing.
Well, you know what? Somebody also made a very good point earlier. Lisa has made, especially if people are cooking from their own homes and then sending goods to their other homes. Some people have a mishigas. It doesn't matter about COVID. They will not eat food that has been touched and produced by somebody that they know. There are people that just won't do it. But this year, Rabbi, in particular, what are we? I mean, I know what we as a shul are doing, and we're going to move to talk about that next. But what are you doing, and what do you advise that people should be doing to fulfill that?
So we are making 2 Mishloach Manos this year. 1 to fulfill my obligation, and 1 to fulfill Miriam's obligation. That's it. That's all the Shalach Manos that we're making this year. It's going to family. My wife has already made phone calls to people that we normally give Shalach Manos to and said, please don't be upset. One of them actually said, I'm so glad you called, because I was desperate to call you, but I was embarrassed to call you, and I'm glad that you called me. And then, But that doesn't mean that next year, hopefully next year, if we're out of COVID, hopefully, then we'll be able to go back to giving shalach manos the way we used to. I hope next year people don't go crazy because like, oh, last year I didn't give any, so this year I have to give 55.
Yeah. Well, we should. You should be giving both of yours to Ian Creek. I think we've decided that's the way that it should be done. Michael Laurie likes the idea of giving kosher for Pesach mishloach manos. Honestly, I think that would solve a lot of problems. A box of matzah and a bottle of grape juice.
Yes.
I don't think anybody's actually going to complain about receiving that, and they'll actually use it.
So we actually, I mean, I must tell you, we've for years already, our minhag has been, I don't know if we call it a minhag, but I've said to my wife when we got married that we make real food. I'm not into buying, you know, when you open up people's mishloach manos, you can tell what was on sale in Haber's. Do you know what I mean? Do you ever get any weight
you know what?
any other time other than for Purim?
You are off my list this year officially. You know.
All right, that's fine.
Okay?
I'll live with it.
You don't appreciate it, man. You're not getting it. That's it.
I'll live with it. I'll live with it. But so again, you know, but that's what it says is that people should only give. And Clive, you can highlight that comment from Clive. Please tell people not to send more than one. That's exactly what we're going to be doing. Each one of us, my wife is giving one, and I'm giving one, and that's it. That's all you need to fulfill your obligation. And so we are both giving one because each person in the household, both men and women, need to fulfill the obligation. More than one is extra. And because of extra driving, extra contamination, extra, you know, all the extra things that you add to that list, therefore, we're doing only one. That's it.
And that is what other people should do. Right, Rabbi, we're going to just touch on. Well, I'm going to.
We've not touched on Matanos Levionim yet, so let's move on.
We're gonna do that because that being prompted now by the question, Rabbi, are you setting up a fund to which we can contribute our charity? So, I guess it's probably now is the time to sort of reveal some of the inner workings behind our shul and the discussions that have been ongoing in the run-up to Purim in terms of what we are going to be doing. We have bashed around a few ideas and we've debated this as to whether or not this year we've seen some shuls are sending every single member a mishloach manos this year. We made sure that every single member had something at Rosh Hashanah this year. There's some people that are choosing to do both. Ian, our president, is particularly keen to try and keep contact down to an absolute minimum. And therefore, we have decided this year that in terms of the shul's mishloach manos drive, we were going to be limiting it to those people that we felt were vulnerable, isolated, perhaps of the age where they would appreciate it more, and really sort of limit it to a relatively small number. Baruch Hashem, we have you have a big flock, and we have a big congregation, and to deliver 700 pieces of shalach manos to different households, I don't understand how that can be construed in any other way right now at the peak of the third lockdown as anything other than irresponsible in our view. And I think that's the review that Ian talked. There were differences of opinion. I'm happy to state that, where different people felt that we should be doing different things. But the Rabbi, you're leading, sending out the small number that we are sending out, but we're deeming those as absolutely necessary.
Yeah, so I mean, when we went through a list, and Ian's gone through it, and I've gone through it already. So we've gone through this list. We're going to make a few more amendments to it, and hopefully Phil Morrison, who's involved in ITD and in delivery, so he's going to arrange for the delivery so that it'll be a commercial delivery service that's going to be done. And it's not going to be done as a general thing. What I would also say is that maybe what we'll try is that the shalach manos should be set up. I'm hoping to have it set up by tomorrow, so that by the time people get it might have been 2 or 3 days since they've been touched by anyone, and so therefore that would make it more secure and more safe for them as well. Those people that are going to be putting together the shalach manos, namely the rabbi and his family, are going to be wearing gloves in order to achieve that. And we're going to get it done. We'll get it done and we'll get it sent out. But again, there were different opinions. Some say we should send, some say we shouldn't say. And I think, the taking the middle ground in this instance of saying, well, there are plenty of people who do not need things from the shul at the moment and would see it actually as irresponsible for the shul to be sending them extra things at the moment. A lot of those people will not be getting. And then for those people for whom we feel it would still give them a boost, and hopefully it's going to be a boost that they're going to get that's not going to in any way endanger them, we will be sending something to them.
And one of the many discussions that we had whilst planning this was whether or not actually we just turn around to the majority of people and say, this year the shul's not going to be sending out shlach to everybody, but what they're going to be doing instead is to revitalize and to rededicate the drive that you do anyway 2 times a year. We support families at Yom Tov time, particularly. I think is it Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot's time, that sort of time.
Yes, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot's time, and Pesach time.
And Pesach time, and so this year we're going to also be doing that. Now at Purim time, we're going to be encouraging. The shul is going to be seeking to put aside those funds, and also we're going to be encouraging people to contribute to that. Let's talk about Matanos Levionim, its importance, and where that money's meant to go, because the based in guidance is that obviously it states that giving tzedakah at this time of the year is a great mitzvah, especially to poor people in Eretz Yisrael. But it also goes so far as to say that we shouldn't neglect the poor people on our doorstep in Manchester. It will be possible to send via bank transfer and to minimize contact. So talk to us about Matanos Levionim and why sometimes it's often overlooked by people.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think I'll start with the following. And when you say it's often overlooked, the Rambam actually says that it's much more important to send extra Matanos Levionim than it is to send Mishlach Manot. It's not, people spend, and it's probably for certain, people spend in 3 figures, and some people are spending even in the 4 figures when they're sending these very extravagant Mishlach Manot to everybody. And so therefore, the Rambam says, you know what, rather than send out so much food to so many people who don't need your food, go ahead and give it to poor people who really do need that food. Okay, so that's the first thing, that it is more important to do the mitzvah Matanos Levionim. The mitzvah Matanos Levionim is fulfilled by giving money to poor people on the day of Purim. So in general, the way we've done it until now is that Rabbi Simcha Bamberger has a fund from which he gives money to 500 different families around the community, and we've always collected for that fund. And then there's been a separate collection for the families that that we've given money to in our shul. That's always happened a month later. So I've not yet. It's strange. I've not yet received. Normally by now we'll have received already from Rabbi Bamberger a parcel with a little bag in it and details, etc., etc. I'm going to try to follow up on that. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be able to send out an email to say to people, if you would like to donate to the fund through Rabbi Bamberger, please donate. Please donate. Here are the bank's details. If you don't want to donate by a transfer, if you want to give money on the day, etc., we will still be coming around, and people will be able to give money. We'll be able to do it in a socially distanced manner. We might just put something on the side, and people can come near there, put their money in, and walk away from it. We're going to try to make sure. Or, I mean, the other thing that I had in mind is that a friend of mine, said he has a card reader, a debit card reader. So I might just go around and people will be able to either pay with their phones. Most people either have Apple Pay or Google Pay. They'll be able to pay with their phones, and we'll be able to do that again without any contact whatsoever. You just put it near there and they'll be able to. And again, whatever goes into that card reader will automatically be sent to the people that need it most. I think to say that for our shul, to be able to collect money now for our shul, I would have to then promise to deliver that money on Purim itself, which would make it a little bit more difficult.
I don't mind when that money is delivered, as long as it's delivered.
But in order to do the mitzvah of Purim, the money needs to be delivered on Purim day.
So the money
needs to be delivered on Purim day. You cannot deliver it afterwards.
Right. So, but encouraging people. I suppose to fulfill their obligation, then how much? I mean, then answering this question here that we've got from Lisa.
Yes.
What is the amount? Is there a minimum amount that should be given in order to fulfill the mitzvah? And when do you have to have given it by?
Okay, so there's no minimum amount to give to fulfill the mitzvah. The nicer way of doing it is that you give enough money for the person to be able to buy themselves some food. So I usually say to people between £3.50 to £5 per poor person that you're giving money to. For £3.50, you could probably go into Chef or into Haber's or one of those shops, buy yourself a sandwich, some crisps, and a can, and you could make a small meal out of it. Yes, it's not a king's meal, but the point wasn't that you should have this massive meal over here. The point was that you could buy yourself food with it. So therefore, in order for a person to fulfill the mitzvah, any amount to charity is enough. If you want to fulfill the mitzvah in a better way, so then you can give, if you give between £7 and £10, you've certainly fulfilled the mitzvah. You can give the money anytime during the day, so long as it reaches the person before Purim is over. So if you give it Purim afternoon, but you know somebody's still going to see two poor people and is going to hand them that money at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Purim afternoon, then that's fine. Can it be given anonymously? Absolutely. I would say almost all of our money is given anonymously because we give it out to, I've given it to Rabbi Bamberger, and he then puts it all together in a general, I don't know what it would be. He puts it together. There is, just to give an idea, the amount of money that comes through, through Matanas Levyonim, just to Rabbi Bamberger alone, is somewhere in the region of 250 to 300,000 pounds, right? So there's no way that when people are giving out that kind of money to all these families that they say £10 from family Lurie and £10 from family Greenberg and £20 from family Mintz. They're not going there. The money will obviously be given anonymously. It doesn't have to. You don't have to know who is giving the money to the person, and it's actually better or nicer not to know who your benefactor is. It's worse when you know so and so has sent you money. You always feel a little bit worse.
Almost embarrassing, isn't it, when you send your money? Laura Greenberg is talking about Mishnah Manas. Now, it must be for people who completely isolated will not get. Otherwise, I never knew the shul gave it to anyone either. Yes, the shul regularly gives, but to a very small number of people. There are 700 of you, and only a relatively small number know about it, because only a relatively small number get it on a yearly basis. But this year we've increased that number, haven't we, Rabbi?
We have it. I think Pesach time, Rosh Hashanah time. I think we did increase that last year. Pesach time also we gave a little bit extra. So yeah. Laura, just to answer that question, actually, Michael has been a regular contributor to the charity. So whilst you might not have known of it, but your family has definitely been on the generous side of giving and has always given very nicely to the appeals. So that whilst you might not have known of it, but it's always been going on.
Kate Laurie has said that we have told our children that if they get excess Mishnah Manot, then we are going to donate the food to food banks, both Jewish and non-Jewish, which is a great idea.
We've done that for years already. We've actually bartered all the food with our kids years ago, and we said, we even pay them money. We even pay them money to give up. So we weigh the Mishlach Manos afterwards, and we just take that and we give the kids money to give up on the Mishlach Manos. We do that twice a year, once on Purim and once on Simchas Torah, because it's so unhealthy for them, all this rubbish.
Do you know what? Ian Creek actually does the same thing with his shul, with his kids. When they collect the sweets in shul from a bar mitzvah or something, or an ofruf or something like that, he actually pays them for the sweets. I don't think he eats them himself, but it's to stop them from getting rotten teeth, but also at the same time to teach them a thing or two about responsibility. Kate asks a great question here. Can I ask when the word Mishlach Manot was changed to Shlach Manot? Which one is correct?
Okay, so the answer is Mishlach Manot is correct, because that's how it's brought in the Megillah. The word in the Megillah is Mishlach Manot. It's not Shlach Manos. How that became, I don't know. That's one of those slang words that sort of developed. I don't know.
So another Kate question: does every person over bar mitzvah have to give their own amount, or can it be per family?
So every person has to give their own amount. But what I usually do is when people give me money, so I say, like, few people gave me money recently, and I said, okay, so this is for you and for your wife and for your kids. Yeah, okay. And then I took the money on behalf of the entire family. So you don't have to come with a whole bunch of £5 notes and go, this 5 is for so-and-so, this 5 is for so-and-so. You can give all the money together and say, this is on behalf of my entire family. But yes, every person over bar and bat mitzvah should be giving their own amount.
Fair enough. Clive,
parents need to.
Can we give Rabbi Wamberger the money before Purim? Is there
yes. Yeah. And he will give it out on Purim. The question is, I need to get the details for you to be able to send him that money. So I hope tomorrow to follow up on that and to try to get the details, because I'm a little bit surprised I've not received those details yet.
Okay. If you get the details, maybe give them to Clive and he can even put them on the website. And
we'll put them out, and I'll put them out over the email as well. We'll send out an email that way.
Fantastic. Okay. Let's move on, because this year is slightly different in terms of the day that Purim falls on as well. It's pretty much Erev Shabbos. So how does it work in terms of the Seudah? Obviously, if I were to pick up the Beis Din guidance again, they've stated very clearly it is illegal to host people who are not part of your bubble in your house for a Purim Seudah. When should a legal Purim Seudah take place this year?
Okay, so legal Purim Seudah, the best thing is to wash before. So the problem is that you shouldn't really be having a big meal before Shabbos. And if you eat a lot on Friday afternoon, come Shabbos, you won't be hungry. On the other hand, you have a mitzvah to have a meal because it's Purim. So therefore, this year, what's going to happen is you should try to wash before about 12:25. You should try to wash, that's before Chatzos, before halachic midday. And therefore, you've started the meal early enough before Shabbos, so that even if you continue eating further into the day, it's not a problem. If you've missed that time, it's still okay. You can wash afterwards. You can still eat after that as well. But again, Chatzos would be the better time to try to make. And Shabbos, I think, is only going in about, 5:20, 5:25 or something like that. So that leaves you really plenty of time to be able to eat, to clean up, to shower everybody down. Like in our house, everybody will have showers afterwards, and to still get ready for Shabbos, hopefully.
Fantastic. Okay. House-to-house spieling. Pretty much forbidden in all respects due to current lockdown. And I'm presuming that then also to spiel, for those people that don't know, but spieling obviously is a small performance often given by young people, and it's to amuse people, but also they are raising funds for various different charities, and the youngsters that you can see crawling the streets and on any given Purim evening, and hopefully this year there will be nobody out on the streets in any of the areas. But normally that is down to spieling, which is really it's a rites of passage, isn't it, for younger people? They go out there. This becomes their Purim celebration, and it's a lot of fun to be able to go in and perform for adults in various different settings, and also to try and raise money for charities. And it can be a great experience. But
that's not only children, by the way, because my children and I have been doing spieling now for the last 4 years or so. We're actually quite successful when we go out spieling. So Moshe takes his keyboard, and I've been a lot easier on the alcohol. So I've had very, very low alcohol drinks, and only right at the beginning of the Masuda, so that by 2 hours into the meal, I have totally sobered up. And then we drive around, and we go to people's houses that have big parties. And then, when you go in, obviously not this year, but you go in with a keyboard and you're able to perform there. It's great that we'll be able to do that kind of thing. And people often give very, very nicely. Last year we went to a house, we made £600 in one home. So it's actually great fun to be able to do that. It's great fun to be able to raise money for charity. And people always tell us that after we've left, you've taken the entire Purim Seudah and you've uplifted us. So at 10, 20 minutes, you ask them, what song would you want to hear? And they tell you a song, and you start singing, whether it's slow, whether it's fast. And the whole table suddenly re-crowds around, and people get into it. It's not only a rite of passage, it is a very, very beautiful thing that people are able to do. And the amount of money that's given throughout the world on Purim is staggering, just staggering.
Yeah, It's an amazing thing. Now we obviously know that I spoke to people from the Friendship Circle this week. I've spoken to Jewish Action for Mental Health, the Fed, various different organizations, and they are all concerned about Purim because Purim time was a time where they could send people out to collect for them, and there would be more outreach. And it's very, very challenging this year to be able to do it. Sharon Hood has stated that there is going to be a Zoom spiel that certain organizations have prepared, and some.
Yeah, that's an answer, by the way, to Lisa's question, because Lisa asked the question of would love to hear ideas how to make Purim as enjoyable for your children.
Well, there we go. We're going to answer that as well. But I suppose everybody should be encouraged to support these charities as much as they can in the forms that they're able to, and to really sort of take the stuff that they put out this year on Purim as seriously as they possibly can, because they are going to be missing out on vital funds. Lisa, who has asked for ideas on how to make Purim as enjoyable for children. I suppose a great starting point, Rabbi, would be to talk about what you released today in terms of children actually hearing the Megillah. So over to you on that.
Okay, so the great thing is that, we had a discussion yesterday, myself and Ian and you, and we decided that for key stage 2, which is years 3, 4, 5, and 6, who have not been coming to shul for the last year almost. My son actually said to me he's not been in shul since last year, hearing the Megillah, my 9-year-old. So they'll be able to come. There'll be a special reading for the children. That reading is going to be every child needs to come, A, with a face mask, B, needs to make sure that he or nobody in his family at the moment is currently isolating. We also need to ensure that parents come with them and sit with them, and the children will need to sit in their seats for the entirety of Megillah. But yes, we will be able to give them, that's the first thing that we're able to say, is that we will be able to have children this year in shul for the Megillah laning, which is something very, very special. I didn't think it would be possible, but I'm really happy that the executive has backed this, and that together we're going to be making it at a different time to other people. So we don't want to endanger or do anything to people who are older or more vulnerable. So the shul reading will be at 6:45. As there are less people there won't be that much banging, and I assume that we'll be finished davening by 7:30. The children's reading will be in the Hilton Suite and not in the main shul, so in a entirely different area, and that will only start at 7:50, so 20 minutes after we finish over there in the main shul, to allow for that, people leaving and other people coming, and that there's no overlap and to be safe. So we've tried as much as possible to keep it as safe as we can. At the moment, yes, you'd have to be a member of the shul for the children's reading. That's what Ian had decided at the moment. I think if we'll have to see what the numbers look like. If we get very, very many requests for it, then I'll have to hand it back to David and to Ian to have that conversation.
Because a Purim really without children isn't a Purim at all, really, when you think about it. And the sort of Purim experience that we now go through as adults really is still seen through the lens of the children in terms of the dressing up and the going and the fun bits. They remain fun well into old age. But you felt it was vitally important to keep some semblance of normality for these kids. They can't use anything that expels air in terms of those blowers or any loud noises or anything like that.
You can use a gragger, you can use any of the shakers or boxes, whatever else it is that makes noise. That's fine. It's just again, using things like shofars, trumpets, things like that. Blows around air, blowing around air will blow around, droplets, other things that might make things move around. We just want to be as COVID safe and COVID secure as we can. So whilst we would like to have the children here, we don't want the children coming and, either their parents or themselves being put at risk by the fun and frolic, which is why they also have to sit in their place. They can't go moving around. Each child will have to stay in their place together with their parents, and the parents will need to supervise their children. And you'll need to know your child, if your child has the wherewithal to sit through the 35, 45 minutes it's going to take to read the Megillah.
Okay, so that pretty much brings us to the end of it, and we've been going now for well over an hour.
Yeah. I would say one other thing. I'm not sure yet if we're doing this, but I I've had this thought that maybe on Purim Day, I asked my son that maybe Purim Day, maybe we'll do a kumsitz together, or not a kumsitz, but maybe for 10, 15, 20 minutes, we'll go on to Zoom, and anybody wants to log on to Zoom with us, you can ask for requests, and we'll try to play your requests, and we'll try to, I know it's not the same as being at your Suda, I know that, and we can't make up for it. But on the other hand, using Zoom and being able to come and give other people the feeling that we're still there with you. We still want to be there with you, and we still want to be able to bring happiness to other people's houses. So if there is if there are enough people that come forward and say, yes, we will join this, even 5 to 10 people will be enough. But if there are enough people that will want to join this, and we'd be happy to do we do a bit of a, I think the other thing that I would say is, thank you, Lisa, for that. The idea, what I would say is, that's really important, is that you can't everybody have their microphones on, because that sounds like a cacophony. The problem on Zoom is the Zoom lag means nobody's actually singing at the same time. In shul, you all sing together and it sounds like something, and because everybody's sort of in their own rhythm, it doesn't really work. But what we're going to try to do maybe on Purim Day during the Suda is take about 15, 20 minutes and do that. Hopefully people will join us for that as well. I'll send out a message and see what kind of response it gets. If it doesn't get much of a response, I won't take a break in the Purim Suda for doing that, but I think it would really give a lot of people tremendous amount of chizuk for them to hear other people. Remember the sudas we had in shul? Do you remember we had, meals in shul, and people played music and everybody ate together, and we had all those games? Yeah. And it's not even so long ago. It's like 2-3 years ago that we had those, and we had hundreds of people in shul. Last year, we had probably well over 100 children. This year, at one point, I was thinking we weren't going to have any children. And to have the children, to be able to engage them, but to realize, I think that Purim is not only a holiday for children. Purim is really a holiday that is for everybody. And it's for adults also to understand the simcha, the happiness that Purim brings, and the idea that Purim can be used for people to feel that, that God is, the idea behind Purim really is that God runs everything. And whether we see it or whether we don't see it, he still runs everything. And you look out at what happens in the Purim story, and you see the Purim story happens over 9 years. We read it in half an hour. And it reads a bit like a great novel that has all the bits and pieces in it.
It's a lovely fairy tale.
The piece here and the piece there and the piece there, and pieced it all together like a puzzle, you actually wouldn't have it. And in truth, life is like a puzzle like that.
He hasn't ever forgotten the famous Purim raffle, because somehow he always ended up, I don't know how, the president of the shul always ended up with the best. But
you know what he won? He won the camper toilet that's been sitting in the shul ever since.
He's the king.
It's really about us understanding, the more you realize that there's somebody who's running things, and there's somebody in charge, and God really runs this world for us, the more, let go and let God is not only it's not a cliche. People sometimes say, oh, that's so cliche. It's not. If you let go and you let God, things get so much easier. You just say, you know what, I'll do my best, and then I let go, and I said, Hashem, I've done what I need to do. You finish off the job. If it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. And you suddenly feel so much lighter and so much better, because in reality, that's really what it's supposed to be. And that's what Purim is supposed to teach us. Throughout all these mitzvahs of reading the Megillah and giving Mishloach Manos and Matanos Evyonim and having a Suda and even drinking a little bit wine, go around and, spend a little bit of time and saying to yourself, this year, since last Purim to this Purim, it's been the greatest show that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has ever had of being able to turn our entire lives around. From last year to this year, whatever happened is so different. It's such a different Purim. It's been such a different year. And nobody could have predicted last year Purim that this year Purim would look like that. But now that we know it does, and we know that Hashem runs everything, in the same way Hashem runs everything, sometimes in ways we don't understand and for the bad, he runs everything for the good as well. And all the goodness that you have also comes from him. And Purim is a time to appreciate that. And maybe share that with your children also. And allow them to feel that Purim is a happy time, and Purim can be a happy time whether or not we are together or whether we're not together. Whether we can get together with friends, whether we can give Mishloach Manos, we can not give Mishloach Manos. We can still be happy just with the fact that God runs the world. That's really the lesson of Purim.
So
and Zoom Bingo.
Well, I cannot add anything to that. That was superb, and I think that it gives people hope that last year Purim we hadn't a clue about what we were going to go through. We were just on the cusp of this horrible thing that has happened, but you know, people, our community, our shul, our friends, our families have shown such resilience, and over this 12-month period that has elapsed, I am proud in each and every one of you for everything that you're still able to do and that you're still continuing to do, and any semblance of normality that you've got in your life, you should count as a bonus.
Absolutely.
Because it's not something that we can rely on, and we know about that now.
Yeah, I think we should also be proud of all the things that the shul has done. You know, I would like to actually, maybe David will speak about this. I would like to make a video, like you made a video of all the different Sunday night lives. We should really put together a video a year later, and all the initiatives, the Zoom davening, the Mishnah Shir, the Pirkei Avos Shir, the Sunday Night Live, the charity podcast, the giving out things before Rosh Hashanah. There have been so many things that have happened this year. Adi and her team have been incredible in all the stuff that they've done.
And Robert and his Tuesday afternoons. Yeah.
You know, there's just been so much stuff that has happened, and even though people haven't been able to physically be there, the shul has really outdone itself in the amount of things that they've done for people and the amount of events they've done for people. And people have, I do believe that people have felt that the shul has cared for them and the shul hasn't forgotten about them. And we haven't, and we're waiting for you to come back. And, you know, hopefully tomorrow, the announcement that Boris is going to make is going to be a positive one. Again, it's going to have to be something that's going to go slow. We're going to do this. We're not going to rush into anything. We're not going to be rash about things. But on the other hand, hopefully we're on the way up. And hopefully, whilst these things are great, and, you know, this Sunday Night Live is a great, great program that I've been enjoying so much for the last 35, 37 weeks, however many weeks it is. And it's great that these things have been created by COVID. Nothing beats face-to-face. And hopefully that, you know, whilst we've done so much in the previous year, face-to-face is really where we want to get to. But hold on tight. This Purim will be different. This Purim will be harder. It won't be as you're used to. But we're already on the way out, and I really believe that we're making our way in the right direction. And hopefully, please God, next year Purim will look different. And this year, you buckle down, you keep Purim according to the law, you keep it according to halacha as well. Make sure you do whatever you need to do. But the main thing is, don't be sad, don't be depressed. Purim is not going to be a depressing time. We'll see to it that it won't be depressing. You can see to it yourself. And if you make the decision, I will be happy on Purim, you'll find a way to be happy on Purim, no matter how morose you think you'll feel beforehand.
Well, I just want to end on a plea to our president, Ian Creek. I don't know if he's reading the comments tonight, but he's being begged to put on a Purim Zoom bingo. I don't know if anybody knows this about Ian, but he's a very frustrated bingo caller. He's a president. Yes, he's a very good president, but his true calling in life has always been bingo. So anybody that would like to see that happen, please send Ian a personal text message this evening, and I'm sure he'll get something arranged by next week.
Okay, so at the moment we're doing bingo, and we're also going to be doing maybe a small kumzit. So we'll have 2 more events that will happen on Purim for everybody. We'll make some posters, we'll send them out, and then join us. Please do.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, once again. Thank you, Rabbi Eisenberg. It's been a very interesting evening. And have a great week, everybody. Have a great Purim. Be safe. If in doubt, stay indoors. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.